Today, we'll be discussing the assassination of Vladlen Tatarsky, a Russian military blogger who was killed in an explosion at a cafe in St. Petersburg on April 2, 2023. Tatarsky was a vocal supporter of Russia's war in Ukraine, and his death has been met with widespread condemnation. The Russian government has blamed Ukraine for the assassination, while Ukrainian officials have denied any involvement. The investigation into Tatarsky's death is ongoing, and it is unclear who is responsible for his assassination. Tatarsky was a well-known figure in Russia, and his assassination has the potential to impact public opinion significantly. He was known for his controversial views and activism, which led to his arrest and fines for anti-war activities. At the time of his death, he was facing charges of treason. It is possible that Russian authorities may have assassinated Tatarsky because of his vocal opposition to the war. The Russian government has a history of silencing dissent, and Tatarsky was a vocal critic of the war. If Russian authorities were behind his assassination, it would be a clear indication of their intolerance for dissent, which could have a chilling effect on free speech in Russia and make it more challenging for people to speak out against the government. Alternatively, it is possible that Ukrainian nationalists may have carried out the assassination due to their opposition to Tatarsky's support for the war. Ukrainian nationalists have been known to carry out attacks on Russian targets, and Tatarsky was a high-profile figure. He had been a vocal supporter of the Russian annexation of Crimea and the war in eastern Ukraine, and he had made numerous inflammatory statements about Ukraine. If Ukrainian nationalists were responsible, it would be a clear signal that they are willing to use violence to achieve their goals, which could escalate the conflict and make it more challenging for both sides to reach a peaceful resolution. Finally, a third party could have been behind Tatarsky's assassination, seeking to destabilize the situation in Russia or Ukraine further. The war in Ukraine has caused considerable instability in the region, and it's possible that someone wanted to create further chaos by assassinating a high-profile figure. If a third party was responsible, it would be a clear indication that they are not interested in peace in Ukraine, which could lead to further conflict and make it more difficult for both sides to reach a negotiated settlement. The assassination of Tatarsky is a tragic event that highlights the dangers faced by journalists and activists who speak out against the war in Ukraine. It could further inflame tensions between Russia and Ukraine, making it even more difficult to reach a peaceful resolution to the conflict. It is important to understand the possible motives behind Tatarsky's assassination to prevent further violence. If Russian authorities were responsible, it could have a significant impact on free speech in Russia and make it more difficult for people to speak out against the government. If Ukrainian nationalists were responsible, it could escalate the conflict and make it more challenging for both sides to reach a peaceful resolution. And if a third party was responsible, it could lead to further instability in the region. The war in Ukraine has already caused considerable death and destruction, and it is imperative to find a way to end the conflict as soon as possible. A negotiated settlement is the best way to achieve this goal, but it will require both sides to be willing to compromise. The assassination of Tatarsky is a reminder that violence is not the answer and that peaceful dialogue is the only way to resolve the conflict. It's essential to remember that Tatarsky's assassination is a crime, and the perpetrators must be brought to justice. Doing so will send a message that violence will not be tolerated and will help create a more stable and secure environment in Russia and Ukraine. In conclusion, the assassination of Vladlen Tatarsky is a tragic event that highlights the ongoing dangers faced by journalists and activists who speak out against the war in Ukraine. The possible motives behind his assassination demonstrate the complexity of the conflict and the potential for further escalation. It is important for both Russia and Ukraine to take steps towards a peaceful resolution and to ensure that free speech and the safety of individuals are protected. It's also crucial that the investigation into Tatarsky's assassination is conducted thoroughly and impartially to determine who is responsible and hold them accountable. Ultimately, a peaceful solution to the conflict in Ukraine is the only way to ensure stability and security in the region. The tragic death of Vladlen Tatarsky must not be in vain, and all parties involved must work towards a peaceful resolution to prevent further violence and bloodshed.